Hey guys, welcome to the IT Trainer. We're back. We're on part 8 of our cloud discussion, of course, with an emphasis on the Microsoft products. We're going to go ahead and get started here in part 8, but real quick, hey guys, don't forget, please subscribe so you get notifications about when the new parts are coming out. I received an email, 2 emails from people asking me, hey, when's the next part coming out? Guys, if you subscribe, you'll know exactly when I release it. I attempt to release anywhere between 1 and 2, possibly even 3 a day. I'm trying to get through the whole course, with the exception of maybe the weekends. But please make sure you subscribe. Also, hey, give me a thumbs up. I'm doing this to spread, as I've said in previous videos, I'm doing this to spread information to as many people as I can. There's no emphasis here on making money. There's no ads on my videos. I just want to get this information out to as many people. And guess what? I can't do that alone. I need you guys. And I really want to thank you for at least considering subscribing and liking and leaving a comment. You know how the YouTube algorithm works. The more comments, the more likes, the more views, the more people see it, which makes a lot of sense to me. But I need your help. And I want to thank you for that help. Okay, so we're starting part 8 off with a discussion of cloud models. Now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of what types of clouds there are out there. And you're going to learn about some of these acronyms, right? Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, right? All of these things, software as a service. But first, we're going to talk about cloud models. Then we're going to talk about cloud service models. So deployment models first and cloud service models second. That's where we're going with the bulk of this roughly 20-minute video. So our cloud deployment models, guys, we have public clouds, private clouds, and hybrid and community. And there's a few other models out there as well. So we're going to take these one at a time, so we can, wrap our heads around the characteristics, if you will, of these different types of deployment models. So the first one is the public cloud, also known as an all-in cloud. This is a cloud environment that is open, it's available, it's accessible to anybody out there with an internet connection. It's available to the general public. Now, the general public, and I'm going to give you obviously some examples of this, but the general public could potentially pay to gain access to these services, or they may even be offered for free. A lot of them are offered for free. Give you some examples. Apple Music, Spotify, what's the Amazon Prime Music, right? You pay for these things, but it's a cloud environment, and you're given access to a bazillion, as I like to say, titles in terms of different types of music. Netflix. What about Netflix? That certainly is a cloud, right? We're streaming videos. We pay, what is it, $12.99, $15.99? I don't even know what it costs nowadays. But that is another example. Office 365 is in the Microsoft cloud, where you connect and you can have email and Word and Excel and all these things in the cloud. And then you have a similar one, which is free, the Google Apps, right? You've got all the Google Apps in the cloud. So this information being provided, or services being provided by this type of cloud, they're available to anybody. Now, public clouds, who can own them? Anybody. Doesn't matter whether it's a public or a private organization. Anyone can own a public cloud. It's not about the ownership being public or private. It's about the data and the services being available to the public or not being available to the public. That's really what it is. Microsoft Azure or Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Platform, all of these have public cloud offerings for us to use, and also private cloud offerings as well. But the public variety is simply open to the public. Anyone can access it, whether they pay for it or whether it's free. It doesn't matter. Now, the private cloud. The private cloud is an interesting one because the private cloud was really born out of virtualization in a traditional data center environment. The cloud didn't just pop out of nowhere. The cloud is really a natural extension of virtualization that we used to implement, and a lot of companies still do, by the way, in their traditional data center. In essence, they're hosting virtual servers and virtual machines in their own data centers at work, and they're providing access to those virtual machines over the internet or over the local area network. This was, in essence, a private kind of an environment for them. The private cloud was born out of that. A private cloud would be a service of some kind that's only accessible to that organization and employees or customers, possibly, of that organization. Now, the cloud services may in fact be shared among different entities within a single business, but this information, this service, is not available to the general public out there. Give an example of what I just mentioned about a customer accessing a private cloud. What if you sell a product? I don't know, you guys work for a company that makes farming equipment, right? Farming tractors, right? And customers buy tractors from your company. Once they are a customer, meaning they have purchased a tractor from your company, they're given access to a dedicated customer website, customer only website, where they can download manuals, they can download schematics, they can set appointments for service and accessories and all of that. Not available to the general public. This would be available only to a subset of people who are verified customers, meaning they've purchased our product. Or here's another example. We have teleworkers. You know, teleworkers simply mean they work from home, right? It's kind of a legacy term. It used to mean you were on a telephone. You're not on a telephone. You're working from home and you're connecting to resources that are a part of your organization. Where do those resources live? They live in the cloud. They live in Amazon Web Services or Google Cloud Services or Microsoft's Azure service. The point is, it's private. It's only for your customers. I don't know, maybe your employees from home have a map drive to a cloud file server. Maybe your employees from home open up Outlook and connect to a Microsoft Exchange server in the cloud. Whatever the scenario is, a customer relationship management database that teleworker sales engineers use, right? So this is definitely a natural extension of virtualization as we've seen it in the past, but these are important to implement when we're really worried about the privacy of the data and security. We don't want the general public gaining access to these resources. We want our employees or possibly those verified customers gaining access to it, but we don't want this information out in the world, if you will. Data privacy is important. Security is a top priority as well. Now, the downside, as some people feel with a private cloud, is the implementation of a private cloud has a higher cost than a public cloud. Whether I agree with that, I'm not sure. Certainly, the way we used to implement private clouds in traditional data centers, it was definitely more expensive, right? We had to have high-powered systems hosting virtual machines. We had to have people or personnel that were trained in the art of VMware or Hyper-V. And there was some costs associated with it. Now, there's, depending on how you're going to set it up, there's little or if any difference between a public and a private cloud offering. Now, traditionally, we don't charge someone to gain access to private cloud data, and I can do that in a public cloud. So maybe there's a little bit of loss of revenue there, but I'm not so sure that's a big downside to a private cloud versus a public cloud. It's more about who can access that information. Now, right in the middle, we kind of have a cloud known as a hybrid cloud. Right? A hybrid of anything is multiples of something coming together to make that entity. Right? Very simple. A hybrid cloud is both a public and a private cloud offering kind of bound together in a solution. So maybe you have general information, a website that's being hosted by a cloud web server that you make available to the world, and then after those people become customers, they're given access to an internal website only for verified customers. That is a public and a private, one example. Another example would be, and this is, all over the place, we see this example, an organization would have a public-facing website and a private-facing website, right? We call it a public website and an intranet website for employees or managers or whatever. That is an example of that. Again, hosting an application. Here's another example. In previous parts, I believe it was part 4 or part 5. Don't forget, guys, go back and watch those parts. Part 4 or part 5, we talked about container applications. Well, I may have container applications that my employees gain access to, and I also have a public-facing website for the world to gain access to. That's another example of a hybrid cloud. Generally speaking, if a business is in the cloud with any depth, they tend to have kind of a hybrid scenario. So when we implement a hybrid cloud, we have an on-demand infrastructure for what we would call non-sensitive data that we would not mind being available to everybody. That's why we have a public-facing website. But we also have the ability to have private data as well, only for our verified customers, as in the case of my tractor example, or our employees who are in fact working from home, right? So this is the hybrid cloud. Now we also have community clouds. A community cloud is really a cloud model that is not tied to a single organization. This would be a community of organizations that share the cloud services. Why would they want to share cloud services with another organization? Because they have mutual requirements, mutual needs, mutual concerns. I'll give you an example, the Greater New York Hospital Association. The Greater New York Hospital Association was a cloud environment that I was heavily involved in building. And basically, this is a cloud that is under the control of many organizations that own hospitals and physical therapist offices, in essence, medical facilities in the state of New York. The community cloud is made up of something like, I don't know what it is now, but when I set it up, it was about 35 different organizations. They all had mutual needs, they all had mutual concerns, and oh, by the way, they spread the cost of it among themselves to make it even cheaper. This is an example of a community cloud. There's another example I'll give you in the great state of Georgia, the Atlanta Municipal Cloud. This is for residents of Greater Atlanta, Georgia. Right? It is under the control by lots of entities within the Atlanta government, local government, taxation, all kinds of entities, police and fire and first responders. But it's also licensing and taxes. You can get your dog license through the cloud. You can make reservations for restaurants in Buckhead or Greater Atlanta through the cloud. So even restaurants and hotels and retail establishments have an interest in this community cloud. It happens to be one of the largest community clouds on the East Coast. That's just another example. So when we talk about several organizations sharing it, it doesn't mean it's being hosted by many different organizations. No, it can be hosted by one organization like Microsoft Azure product or Amazon Web Services or the Google services, right? It could be hosted by an organization, a third party, or it could be absolutely several organizations. In the case of the Greater Atlanta Cloud, there are some resources hosted in the IBM Cloud, right? More of the taxes and licensing and all of those things. And then the Amazon Web Services cloud is hosting for this cloud cooperative, if you will, a lot of the retail stuff that people would buy. And they're given discounts for buying, I don't know, landscape equipment for their homes and, whatever, trash bags, those kind of things. And then Google Cloud Services is actually hosting, because they have a fantastic restaurant cooperative product, where they are providing restaurants in the greater Atlanta area who register and hotels who register the ability to take reservations in the cloud. Kind of cool stuff. But that is a cooperative of providers. So it could be a single provider, it could be a cooperative of providers, but it is traditionally always a cooperative of organizations that have mutual needs and interests and concerns. Okay, so you'll see a lot of these out there, and they're getting more popular. Obviously, they help drive down cost. You'll see these in the financial sector. You'll see them in the legal sector. There's a H&R Block, for instance, is another community cloud, right? H&R Block is made up of all kinds of tax representation franchises from all over the United States. H&R Block is a franchise deal. So that's another quasi example of a community cloud. So those were the deployment models. I can deploy a cloud publicly, I can deploy a cloud privately, I can deploy a cloud kind of in both. We call it a hybrid or a community cloud. Now, what do I do within the cloud? What can I provide in terms of a service? Well, we start to get into the acronyms. Infrastructure as a service, IaaS. Platform as a service, PaaS, or PaaS, depending on how you say it. Software as a service, SaaS or SaaS, right? Infrastructure, platform, and software. These are what we're providing, what the cloud service provider is providing to us in terms of what services they're providing. So the first one, infrastructure as a service, also known as IaaS, right? And by the way, there's some things with these acronyms that you got to remember, right? You're always going to have as a in the middle of the acronym. Infrastructure as a service, security as a service, and there's other ones out there. But infrastructure as a service is known as a shared responsibility model because the cloud service provider provides the hardware and you build your virtual machines and your virtual infrastructure on top of that hardware, right? In essence, you're kind of quasi-renting the hardware from the cloud service provider. But this is all about computation, computing, building virtual machines, virtual networks, storage, data processing, all these different things that would happen in more of a traditional data center. This would be like the data center in the cloud. Now, you may not have an entire data center in the cloud. You might just have one application being hosted in a container. Is that infrastructure as a service? Absolutely, because there's computational processes associated with people gaining access to that application. So absolutely, it is considered infrastructure as a service. Or hey, we might over the next 2 years be migrating our entire data center into the Microsoft Azure platform. Is that IaaS? Yeah. So IaaS comes in different levels depending on how deep you're going to get into it. It might be a function hosted in serverless computing. Remember part 2. It might be an application that's hosted in a container, part 2 and part 3. Right? It might be full-blown virtual machines that we've been talking about throughout these 7 and 8 parts, right? So in essence, the customer, you, not the cloud service provider, you're installing and you're managing operating systems and file systems and virtual machines and virtual networks and virtual IP. In essence, it's kind of like you rented a piece of their data center, right? Well, you did, but we don't visualize it that way. We visualize it as our own private infrastructure that we've built, and it's virtualized. We're not concerned, if you will, with the hardware. We are, but we're really not. The next one is platform as a service, or PaaS. Platform as a service, the cloud service provider is providing a computing platform or a software environment that the customer will use to develop web-based applications. It's dev in the cloud. Could have been called dev as a service as well. So in essence, you communicate your requirements to the cloud service provider. And what are those requirements? Whatever your developers need to do their job. Whatever kind of programmatic language and compilers and services and tools and all that. and the operating system bed that you're building it on. They will provide it to you, and now your developers go to work. You don't own the hardware. You don't own any of it. Your developers instantly are productive. Okay, we can develop applications. Now, these applications that we're developing could be used in-house, or they could immediately be used externally, meaning I could let customers access them. But that doesn't matter. The dev as a service or platform as a service is we are developing a new application from scratch. And then we're going to turn around and do something with it, whether we're going to just release it in a more of a production environment and our employees are now using it, or we're turning around and we're renting access to it over the internet. So it doesn't matter necessarily what we do with it, but platform as a service is a computing platform, a software environment that the cloud service providers, customers will use ultimately to build their web-based applications. Guys, this has been great. We're done part 8. We're going to come back and we'll hit part 9. We'll talk about some additional services coming up. Hey guys, please do me a favor and like the video, share the video, become a subscriber so you guys will know exactly when new videos are going out. Right? Leave me a comment, leave me a question. I'll be happy to answer them. I train for a living. This is not my living here in the YouTube world. I'm doing this to expand my training out to the masses. I work for a training company. I live in the state of Florida, but I'm doing this to kind of build up an online platform for training because I think it needs to be more accessible to people, and I need your help to do that. Hey guys, it's been great. I'll see you back here for the next one. Talk to you soon.